Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett.
Well, hey there, Michelle. How are you doing?
Hello, Steve.
Was that better?
That was better. And did you notice that I did my intro differently because Scotty Bennett has been making fun of me because I go on Dripping Springs?
How did you do it differently? I didn't catch it.
I just said it all as one, but you know, whatever. Whatever,
We're getting
Scotty.
better. We're just improving.
Yeah, whatever,
hey,
Scotty.
Quick reminder, the show today is brought to you by Capital Farm Credit and M. Elliott Studio,
Yes.
our new sponsors. Excited to have them on board.
We are very lucky, and your credit card has been on fire.
On fire, yeah, with money I don't have, unfortunately.
We are redecorating the studio.
It's actually redoing it completely.
Redoing,
Yeah,
yes.
you won't even recognize it. We'll post some stuff on social media about that.
Speaking
the
of
progress of that.
redecorating, that Sawyer Ranch project. What a cluster!
Yeah, what are they
bleep.
doing? I haven't been down there. What are they doing?
Well, they're repairing it, but they're not repaving the entire thing. They're repaving it in sections, which makes it even like bumpier
I've noticed
than it
that
already
a
is.
lot on some of the county roads. They fix it a little bit at a time. I don't
just
know why
wanna-
they do that.
I want to formally say that is stupid. So there, I've said it.
Okay.
That's just a stupid idea.
Well, it's TxDOT, right?
It is. I guess it is
They
TxDOT.
typically do a pretty good job, but on Sawyer Ranch Road, TxDOT, you're stupid.
And well, you know, you go out to the Oak Hill area a lot. You kind of bypass through that area
I
a lot.
do.
And it seems like every time now we drive out there, it's like, a new road is opened up, which
Oh,
is
I know.
kind of exciting. But
No, it's not exciting.
it is
I
kind
don't
of
like
exciting.
it.
But you know, that NXP that's right there on
Yeah.
the corner?
Yeah.
The Austin City Council is set to sign off on a new economic development agreement out there, and it's a $291 million expansion for both of their campuses. You know, there's a Ed
Wow.
Bluestein campus and then the Oak Hill
Okay.
campus. NXP, you know, remember that used to be Motorola back in the day.
I know.
Todd
20
and I
years
both,
ago or something. Yeah.
Oh gosh, longer than 20
Yeah.
years ago. Well, yeah, maybe it was 20, but it's a Netherlands-based company. But the reason why I brought this up was that $148 million and some change of this is going to retrofit the Oak Hill location, which is, you know, really old. Gosh, I don't know how old it is. Actually, when I first started working there in 93, 94, it wasn't old, but it was kind of new.
It's been a couple of
It's been a long
different
time.
things
This may be
since I
like almost
moved here.
40 years old. But one of the biggest things that they're doing there is going to include a child care facility. So,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, so I think that's kind of
For
cool.
everybody or just for the employees?
Well, I mean, not for you. Do you have any? It's like I think just for
Actually, I
NXP
think
employees.
it would be for you. In this scenario, if it's for me, it would be me dropping you off at the child care
True.
facility. So
True.
You can get your little
Ooh,
nap.
can I? Oh, that would be a great idea. That would be a great idea.
Give Michelle a snack and a nap, please.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Hey, I got a couple quick things. A couple weeks ago, we did a story on Flo, the tree at Barton Springs.
Yes, the one that they were taking down or going to take
so
down.
They had a ceremony set up for a sort of end of life memorial. I know for Flo, which the tree's been there a long
Did
time.
they release balloons and doves in the air?
Well, at the last minute, they canceled it. I think they're going to try and save it.
How?
I don't know, but apparently 4 arborists went in and said, the tree's not going to make it. It's got this brittle some
Beetle,
virus, fungus or something. But then somebody else came in and said, no, we think it can be saved. So the city's put all that on hold, and I think they're going to try and save it. So we'll see. We'll keep tuned for that and let you know how that's going.
What is the term? The rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Wow, you did that good. Yes,
Oh.
yes. And then something else, the place that Holly and I went on our very first date, the Hyde Park Grill in Westlake.
I saw that
just
it closed.
I know.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed. I like that place. We haven't been there a whole lot since the COVID thing, but
I haven't been there in a long time, but my favorite thing that they had there were their French fries.
Yeah,
That really in their aioli sauce. But there's also a new restaurant.
They did beer battered green beans with that aioli sauce. Man, it was awesome.
Steve, I'm really hungry right now. When can we go to Pigpen?
We need to
'Cause
go to
I'm
Pigpen.
really hungry.
Let's wrap this up.
There's a new I think it's a food truck on William Cannon, kind of over there. It's a Hawaiian food truck that I want to go.
Oh, really? What's Hawaiian food? I don't know what Hawaiian food would be. Like what?
Well, it's like a lot of rice and chicken. There's like teriyaki chicken and there's spam fried rice.
Oh, I did read about that. Yeah.
But when we were in Hawaii, we ate at this food truck and it was like a shrimp food truck and it had the best shrimp and it was spicy and it was delicious. And let's just talk about food the rest
I know.
of the podcast.
We're going to be stuck on the food. Hey, real quick, I forgot to mention, very special guest today, second time guest, Mayor Bill Foulds is coming on from the city of Dripping Springs.
We are very honored to have him on, and we have questions that we filled out from the neighbors page, and so we've got some good questions for him.
I had a couple of people email us through our website with some questions, so we'll pepper him with those, and I've got some that I wrote down, but it's exciting. There's a lot going on at the city, and he's going to fill us in. We have a guest. I actually don't know exactly when he's coming in. It's in the next few weeks. But David James from the Peyton Heart Project is going to be our guest. And the Peyton Heart Project, I don't know a lot about it, but it's something to do about suicide awareness. And we meant to talk about this earlier in the month, but September is Suicide Awareness Month. And I know you have some personal experience with suicide in your family, unfortunately. And so David sent me some statistics about suicide, and some of this was very eye-opening for me. I'll just run through some of these. Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the U.S. It's the second leading cause of death in kids 10 to 34, or youth 10 to 34. In 2021, there were 48,000 Americans died of suicide, and it actually increased in 2022 to 49.5.
During COVID.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know. I wanted to go look and see what it was in 2019. I'll bet it was much lower than 48,000. But there are 132 people a day in the U.S. take their lives by suicide. It's a big problem, and I don't know why we're not talking about it more. There's some myths about suicide that you might be able to comment on. People that talk about suicide aren't just doing it for attention. A lot of times they really are asking for help. It can be prevented. A lot of people think, oh, well, if they're going to kill themselves, they're going to kill themselves, and there's nothing we can do about that. No, if you intervene, and one of the things I read on, I think it was the Mayo Clinic, if you think somebody's going to potentially take their own life, ask them, are you sad? Are you thinking about taking your own life? Because sometimes they're not doing it for attention, but they do need somebody to care for them. And that reaching out could prevent somebody from taking those next steps.
I think also there's this kind of blanket statement that people say about suicide, about how selfish it is. And it's so much bigger than that. Yep.
That was actually one of the myths, that it's selfish. It's, go ahead, finish your thought.
That's the thought right there. It's just, I can't really expand more on that, but there's just a lot more to that statement than it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think sometimes people get so down and with such despair that they can't see any other way out.
Well, even happy people have suicidal thoughts. So
There's
that.
True.
You just kind of really never know what someone's going through, and the people that you love and you care about, friends or family, it's just reach out and
here's some signs that you should watch for. Obviously, talking about suicide. And then getting the means. So maybe somebody is collecting pills, or they've never had a gun before, but they start asking about getting one. Withdrawing into themselves. So somebody that's maybe a little more outgoing, all of a sudden is keeping to themselves. Heavy mood swings one way or the other. Preoccupied with death or violence or dying. That's a sign. Feeling trapped or hopeless, with feeling no empowerment to get themselves out of that. Like you can't live your life without somebody helping get you out of that. Increase in use of drugs or alcohol. So David's going to come in here when he's our guest, and we'll talk more about that, but it's something we should be discussing more. It's one of the leading causes of death, especially amongst
young kids.
Amongst youth. So
I think social media has become the demise. Speaking of the demise of our society, and sometimes it's in business purposes, it's a necessary evil, because it's actually social media is more widely searched sometimes than a Google search. And I think that we forget the impact that a Snapchat or something like that can have on a young 12-year-old's mind, girl or boy, or 13, and so just need to pay attention.
Well, there's online bullying, which leads to that. There's also this, that, somebody that's 13 or 14 years old thinks that I see this picture on Instagram. I need to have that life. Why don't I have that life? And us as mature adults, we know that snapshot has nothing to do with reality most of the time, right? Have you ever seen somebody, two people that don't really even like each other, but they're standing next to each other with their arms around each other, pretending like they're, best friends, and that's just not reality.
Yeah.
But they aspire to have, the perfect body, the perfect life, the perfect car, the perfect clothes, and when they don't have that, they feel like they're doing something wrong, and that just can lead to some really bad feelings. And I agree with you. Social media is, you said, a necessary evil. I don't necessarily think it's been really good for our country.
I don't think it's been beneficial to society as a whole. Well, to kind of piggyback on that subject, the Hays County Commissioners Court has voted to create a Veterans Commission. And basically what that's going to do, it's going to promote and support these veterans, and it's going to kind of facilitate all these veterans groups that are kind of all around Hays County, and it's going to kind of have a singular place where they can coordinate. But it's also going to formalize the process by which roads are named after on our fallen soldiers here in Hays County, which is kind of a very wonky process. Same thing with police officers and stuff. But the Hays County Veteran Service Officer, his name is Jude Prather. He's the one that kind of presented this at the Commissioner's Court. Each commissioner in each precinct in Hays County would have one appointed person. So it's a point of contact.
Okay.
Walt Smith was really on board with this as well. It was a unanimous decision on the Hays County Commissioner's Court. But he is also in talks with Mr. Prather about the structure so that the veterans are very well represented and very unprompted. And Joe doesn't know I'm doing this, but I'm going to nominate Joe Hogue as our precincts.
He should be.
Either Joe himself or someone that is aligned with Joe, because Joe at 12 Fox, they have done an amazing job with the veterans in this community.
Supporting
mental
veterans
health
is a huge part of their mission. Yeah.
So there's my little soapbox, Joe.
Yeah. It's nice to see those kind of things happening. We need to honor the people that have given so much of their lives for us and for our country. Hey, I know you're a big fan of Trader Joe's.
I am a big fan of Trader Joe's once a month when I go get my hair done.
Yeah.
Because it's right next.
Is that when you always go?
Yeah, it's at Seaholm, and I get my hair done at Ruiz Salon, and I go over there, and I did not get to go last Thursday, but I want to go and get these soup dumplings that they have. Does that I'm talking about food because I'm really hungry.
Food. It's okay. Concentrate, Michelle. There was a video on TikTok. It's been a couple years now. And it got 9 million views. And it was from this influencer that said, clerks at Trader Joe's are trained to flirt with the patrons.
I could be great at that job then, because I am a natural born flirt. I am not flirting with you. I'm just flirty.
Yeah. Do you think that's true though? When you go through line there, they interviewed a CEO, Brian Paulbaum, and he said no. But then some clerks have said, well, they don't say flirt, but they do encourage us to be very nice. And one of the things they say is, compliment something that they're buying. And this one guy says, everybody that comes through the line, I'll pick out one of their items and say, oh, that's my favorite. Doesn't even matter what it is. That's my favorite.
You know what? There's this kid that works at Chick-fil-A in Belterra, and every time I go through, he's like, oh, I like your nail color today. Oh, your hair looks really nice today. Ooh, I like the color of your car.
I wonder if he's been trained to flirt.
I don't know, but I love it. I could be a brand ambassador of flirting. I think I could be the dripping brand ambassador.
Yeah. The problem is, in this day and age, you could be being friendly to somebody.
Steve, try being a female. Like, I'm telling you, if women are nice, not all men, I'm going to give it, but if if me just being me, a lot of times it's misconstrued as me being flirty or interested.
And you're just being nice.
I'm just being Michelle. I'm just being me.
Well, obviously, I've never experienced that on my end. But from an employee standpoint, having clerks that are doing that, maybe crossing the line and being accused of hitting on somebody in line because they're being overly friendly.
That's kind of where I come from the standpoint of, I was always taught, I'm born and bred Texan, right? I was always taught to be very, very courteous, I'm not always very courteous, but nice and just welcoming to people. And I don't know, the more and more I find there are people coming from outside of the state, that it's unusual for somebody to be my whole family's like that. Yeah. Like, come on by. Hey, are you hungry? Come on, we can come eat dinner with us, whatever. And it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the Texan way, but that's the way I am.
Yeah. Well, I probably ruined it for some people now too. When they go into Trader Joe's, they're going to go, is this person being nice to me, or it's because they were trained to be nice to me? Are they nice, or is their boss watching?
I'm going to take it as a challenge now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you go do that.
So whenever we finish this, like, I'm really, really hungry. So you've talked about Trader Joe's, we've talked about Hyde Park, and you are going to have to feed me.
Well, we're going to go. We're going to go to Pigpen.
On Tuesdays, we Pigpen.
I wish we were live and Bill was listening. He could have our order ready for us when we get over there. So, but hey, let's take a little break and get Mayor Bill Foulds in here. We got a long list of questions for him, and I'm real excited to have him on as a guest again.
Perfect.
Proudly sponsored by...
At Capital Farm Credit, they understand that owning land is more than just a transaction. It's a legacy, a future, and a place to call your own.
For generations, Capital Farm Credit has been the trusted lending partner for land loans, farmers, ranchers, and rural dreamers just like you.
Their personalized loan solutions cater to your unique needs, making the journey to land ownership smoother than ever.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit CapitalFarmCredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Interior design should be an investment in your life and home. Let M. Elliott Studio transform your space, where interior design meets excellence in Central Texas.
Beyond just selecting colors and furnishings, team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, is a trained and licensed interior designer.
With her knowledge of architectural principles, building codes, space planning, and design theory, her team will work with you to understand your needs and lifestyle.
From concept to completion, M. Elliott Studio is committed to enhancing your space with a timeless and classic style.
Ready to redefine your space?
melliottstudio.com, 512-781-0224.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
And we're back with Mayor Bill Foulds for the second time. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to visit with y'all.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. You visited with us way back in episode 14.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot's gone on since then, huh?
Yeah. Y'all are at 92 now?
92. You're 92. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Steve doesn't look a day over 91.
I feel like that being around you.
You're welcome.
So, Bill, in episode 14, we heard a lot about who you are and where you grew up and all that. So if anybody wants to hear about that, they can go back and listen to that episode. But we want to talk mostly today about what's going on at the city, and we've got some questions that people have asked us to ask you. So just kind of start us out with, from your point of view, just in general, what's happening at the city right now?
The state of Dripping Springs.
The state of Dripping Springs. There you go.
Financially, physically, we're in great shape, which is first and foremost. We're still struggling with roads. We're still struggling with water. We're still struggling with wastewater. Those are the big ticket items. We're waiting on our comprehensive plan to be finished up. hopefully first quarter next year, we'll be seeing it and rolling it out for more public input. So there's a lot going on. Our staff has grown exponentially with all of this growth. We've just had to keep adding and adding.
So when you say that staff is growing, is it as the tax revenue goes up? Are there positions that you guys have identified and you say, hey, once we get to this amount of revenue, we need to hire, I don't know what, another planning officer or planning person? Or how does that work at the city where you decide when you start growing and adding more positions?
It's mainly when the staff cannot keep up. We are unable to get ahead of the curve, so to speak. Yes, we have to make sure we have the revenue, but the hardest thing for the past 3 or 4 years is finding employees. And fortunately now that seems to have settled down. We're able to find good quality people. They're staying with the city longer, so we feel like we're in a good place.
And it's kind of cracked me up because it seems like in the business that you're in at the city, the other cities are always poaching your employees, aren't they? It's like this little rotating thing where, I'm working for the city of Kyle, I'm working for the city of San Marcos. And
it's true. And we do the same.
Yeah, I know.
What goes around comes around.
Yeah. So tell us, so you mentioned fiscally things are going well. Tell us about that. Why is that?
Sales tax revenues are continuing to grow. Obviously, development permits, that part is still growing. We've been able to hold the line on ad valorem taxes because the values have gone up so much. We'll probably keep our same tax rate this year. We may have to take on a little debt to pay for some things, but it's not going to be much if we do that.
Yeah.
We'll find out tonight and next Tuesday.
You got a city council meeting tonight?
Yep. We approve the budget next week.
Okay. Who reports that to you at the city council, whether you need to do that, to take on that debt or not? Is there somebody in charge of that, setting up that budget?
Sean Cox is over our finance department. He's also, we just elevated him to a deputy city administrator. So he'll work alongside Ginger, just under her, and he's over our finance.
Okay.
So he keeps us up to speed on where we are with finance, with our income, with our out.
Okay.
And we're doing well.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good position to be in, isn't it?
It is.
It's, compared to other cities of our size, are we doing better fiscally, financially than some of these other cities around, or are we about the same, or what? Do you know how we fit in?
We're very competitive, both in the amount of money we generate and the amount of money we're spending. It's runs a pretty steady line. We look at TML, Texas Municipal League, and get dollar numbers from other cities to see how we're doing, and we compare very well.
Okay. And one of the things I was going to ask about is sales tax receipts have had to have skyrocketed in the last 10 years, right? I mean, the number of businesses that have come, huge businesses too. So as that revenue from those sales tax receipts, how much does the city get from sales tax?
Cannot say off the top of my head.
Okay. But it's not the whole, like some people think it's 7.5% or 8%. It's not that. You get a percentage of it. Yeah.
Right.
But the sales tax revenue has had to skyrocket. And so as that's allowed the city to grow and prosper. And so that's why, like you were talking about earlier about the Belterra development came into the city limits, and that allowed you guys to collect sales tax from that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Belterra commercial.
Right. The Belterra commercial, right. Not the residential part.
Do you feel like there's been a COVID rebound in that sense, where we were kind of in the weeds a little bit with COVID and businesses have kind of stalled? But like I know, for instance, the movie theater over there in the Belterra Shopping Center was really kind of stalled out. Do you feel like businesses we're kind of back in business now? Things are kind of normal?
Definitely things are much more on a normal scale. We never saw a huge drop in sales tax through COVID.
That's interesting.
We did very well. We've had growth year over every month. And we saw just a very slight dip for the month of July, just on the HEB sales tax.
Oh.
And we were kind of curious how that was going to hit us.
Yeah.
Oh, because they opened the new store.
The new store opened, and we don't receive anything from that store. So we were very concerned going into budget planning how that would affect us. And it's minimal.
Is that right? So, yeah, because the store is not near as busy as it used to be. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know how that's working, but hopefully it continues like that. Well, we had some questions that people asked us on Facebook and through our website. And so, is it all right with you if we just kind of randomly go through some of these questions and you?
Okay,
Michelle's
so
got some.
The first one on Facebook, Bill Fairbanks asked, are there any plans for a sidewalk along the 12 from Mercer to Founders Ridge?
I don't think that's in the plans at this time. The state of Texas, TxDOT, has been great about having grant opportunities. And Aaron Reed, who I think has been on y'all's show, our public works director, he stays on top of those and he applies for, works any kind of grant he can. And we've done some community sidewalk grants that we did right across the street from y'all, where we connected the HEB Center all the way to Founders Park. And so we'll continue doing that.
Okay.
With sidewalk grants.
I know that like during Founders, the Founders Festival this past year, and I think the year prior to that, there was not any parking allowed on 12, but it doesn't matter. There's still people that are walking up and down 12. So I can kind of see the need for this. So is it, if this citizen is asking for something like that, maybe there isn't, how should I say this? They're not aware of the need. So does he need, if he's requesting this, who should he reach out to in the city to alert that there's a need?
Yeah.
Anyone can email me. I'll pass it along to Aaron. Aaron Reed at our Public Works, he'll be tracking these type things. The biggest issue you run to on 12 and 290 is right-of-way acquisition, and it's a state highway. So it's a difficult area to put a sidewalk on. But you may get there through Founders Park and, work your way back through that area.
Well, and to kind of piggyback on that Bill Fairbanks question, there is going to be some sidewalk from Mercer because of the TERS project up to Rancho 12, but not from Rancho 12 to Founders
Not
Ridge,
on Rancho 12.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Frank Venturella. Sorry, Frank, if I'm butchering your name. We are on water restrictions, but the city keeps approving new residential developments. This doesn't make sense. Please explain the city's rationale for this expansion and what is going to do to address the water issues. Well, I guess, and what is happening to address the water issues?
Water's my biggest concern besides wastewater right now. What many people don't realize is the city of Dripping Springs, up until this past 2 years, we did not supply water to anyone. It's all done through the Dripping Springs Water Supply Corporation, which is a separate entity. In the development world, when a developer walks in the door, especially commercial, he has to show that he has water. If he does, we must then start the negotiation. The Water Supply Corp and even the West Travis County PUA both supply water in this area. And before we will go down the road of a development, there must be a will serve letter that says they have the capacity to receive water. And
so if they don't get that, nothing else happens.
Right. But if they get that, it opens the door to where it pretty much forces the city.
Go ahead.
Pretty much forces the city to start the negotiations.
Yeah.
And they've got the water is what they tell us.
Okay. And then, so the second part of that is the wastewater, though, which is a huge issue right now. So catch us up on that real quick on the wastewater.
We are waiting for the Texas Supreme Court to make a decision on whether they will hear the case that SOS has filed against us. And they have been sitting on it, I believe, for 4 months now. But the Supreme Court typically is like the U.S. Supreme Court in the sense they kind of go into recess all summer and don't do a whole lot of review. So we're hoping now that summer's over, that opinion would be coming down fairly soon. And if they could come back and say, no, the lower courts are correct, leave everything as it is, which is we have our permit. So once they gave us that green light, appeals are over, we can move forward. Or they can come back and say, we want to hear more about this, and not even, they'll give us 30, 60 days, whatever timeline it is, to submit our reasons.
Okay.
And then they can sit on that for as long as they want.
Oh, geez. But you guys feel like at this point, you're optimistic, cautiously optimistic?
We have the permit. The last court ruled in our favor, so we have to be optimistic. And the state of Texas has written wastewater permits throughout the state for years, and the state has seen everything and agrees, and they're the ones who is actually being sued because the SOS doesn't feel the state interpreted the rules properly. Okay.
So a lot of people, I think, they're confused. Like the new development here to the east of us, where the Cannon Ranch was, right where the new light is going in.
Big Sky or Wild Ridge.
Yes.
Is it Wild Ridge, the new one where they just cut in the road?
That's going to take the road all the way up. Wild Ridge is not doing anything yet. They're just putting in the main road, but that's going to connect through the Cannon track, which is developing also, and then go all the way halfway to the hill track. Okay.
So the new development here through the Cannon Ranch, there's going to be homes there. How did they get wastewater if there's the lawsuit has kind of stopped any new development or new permits for wastewater? Have they had the permits for years there?
A good example, I guess, not to deflect that question, but
it's all right.
Big Sky subdivision.
Yeah.
They're building. When they came in 8-9 years ago, we said, we know we can serve 250 homes. And they said that should get us through for 5-6 years, 50, 60 homes a year on a subdivision. They asked, what could we do to get to the next 250, which would be quite a bit.
Right.
We agreed you could do an arrangement where you dispose of your own wastewater. Pump and haul, something we hate, something we're not allowing anymore. But at the time, we never dreamed this permit was going to get held up for this long.
Yeah.
And this has caused a big inconvenience for some of those residents. They've got big green tanks right by their swimming pool. And
they're doing pump and dump there now? Is that
pump and haul?
Pump and haul. Sorry. Yes. But really? Well, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I had heard something through the grapevine, but I didn't know that was actually the case.
Yeah. And it's only for about half the homes.
Okay.
And they're about at their limit. They can finish what's being built and maybe add 2 or 3 more homes, but not much more. At that point, they've already got a permit to put in a new wastewater plant there on their property.
Okay.
So it goes back to my original thing. It's not personal, but it is personal. Nobody protested a wastewater plant basically in downtown Dripping Springs. And yet here we're trying to regionalize it and get it all away from downtown, and we're in a protest. Yeah, it's the same wastewater.
Yeah, some of this stuff makes no sense to me.
When the Supreme Court does make their ruling, and if it is in Dripping Springs' favor, then how soon can Dripping Springs go forward?
Quickly. The plant is 95% designed.
Okay.
So that's basically done. The East Interceptor and West Interceptor, part of that, which are the main trunk lines that will carry it, the East is being held up a little bit, but we have a way to reroute things in an interim or temporary basis. We hope. We're looking for a way, I guess.
When you say held up, you mean it needs to cut through somebody's land and they won't grant the easement for it?
Yep, there's an easement problem. And we don't have a clear path on the east side. The west side, we're good to go. And if we can divert the flows over to the west, which is what we'll try to do for an interim basis.
Okay.
And then we could serve it all that way.
Yeah. I've got a question here from Sarah Rose. I'm kind of skipping around here, but does the city have any say in the proposed Fitzhugh concert venue?
None whatsoever.
He says that with a hallelujah.
I actually met with those folks about 4 years ago.
Did you?
And told them then, you're going to have a major problem, and that road's not designed to handle that much traffic, and address the traffic and the water issues, and good luck.
And they're still moving ahead.
I guess they're having some meeting that's coming up here pretty soon. And will the city have any type of representative there just to kind of listen in, eavesdrop.
Like the FBI
Yeah, the
agents at
FBI.
January 6th?
Yeah.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I don't know if we'll send someone. We have absolutely no say in it. I think Donna Campbell requested that TCQ hold a hearing.
Okay.
And I attended one of the meetings, and our staff has been watching it from the peripheral, but I don't think we want to get into that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It seems to be an ugly fight. Yeah. Well, and you don't have a dog in that fight anyway.
Right.
So
Okay, so we've already addressed the water. Let me see. I'm going to skip around just a little bit. This is from Alan Shannon. How is the city going to manage businesses they don't want coming in the city? This is worded really strange. How is the city going to manage businesses they don't want coming in the city? If the city is losing
control over properties in the ETJ,
since property owners can opt out of the ETJ, what is the and then he asked
which we've already
talked about the wastewater. So, anyways, I guess he's asking about the ETJ. So, just layman's terms, let's talk about the ETJ a little bit. We're the largest ETJ in the state of Texas, right?
For a city of our size.
For a city of our size.
Yep.
Okay. So there's only people don't understand, and I kind of didn't understand either, is how can we annex those that are forcefully annex those that are in the ETJ? Can we not? So explain that a little bit.
And the ETJ is governed by our water quality rules. It's the only control we really have, and some signage control. But as far as zoning and what businesses can physically be there, we have absolutely no control whatsoever. So if a strip bar wanted to open up a half a mile up past Dairy Queen, they could probably do it. There's a hole in the ETJ.
If it's outside the ETJ, yeah.
Yep.
If it's in the
open strip bar.
If it's in the ETJ, they could do it.
Yeah, because you only control the water
city
quality.
Limits. Yeah, in the city limits, we control the zoning. So zoning's our biggest hammer. And that's how you control what businesses look like inside the city.
Just out of curiosity, are there places in the city that are zoned that would allow for a strip club?
You have to. Constitutionally, you can't. So it's done through zoning, and then you have to allow special use or a CUP, conditional use permit. So some areas are zoned so that you could get a conditional use permit for these different type of items.
Well, he's asking also, since properties can opt out of the ETJ, and we were talking about this before we went on air, is that if you opt out of the ETJ and ask to be in the city limits, you can't then opt back into the ETJ, correct?
I don't know if you can opt out and opt in.
You can't flip-flop.
I don't know if you can flip-flop.
Once you're back in the city limits,
our city limits is a very defined area. As a city grows, your ETJ can grow approximately half a mile out.
Okay.
And that is a forced growth. If we expanded our city limits to, an example, a mile from here, people a mile and a half away would automatically be in our ETJ. And that is a forced coming in.
And they can't opt out.
They could opt out.
If they've never asked to be in the ETJ.
If they never asked. Yeah. Our situation is so different because of the formation of Dripping Springs with the lawsuits with the city of Austin. Our ETJ is huge, but most of those properties sent a letter requesting to be in our ETJ.
Way back.
This is in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And we still have all those letters on file. This legislation does not allow that if you ask to come in, we're not forced to let you out.
Okay. It's like Hotel California.
You can never leave.
There you go.
Here, I've got another one just kind of bouncing around. Jason Gorman. I'd like to ask him his stance, meaning you, Bill, on water variances for Dripping Springs Youth Sports Association, particularly the soccer program.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
My understanding is that he does not or has not supported variances for DSYSA to water the fields at the city-owned park. I didn't even know that the city had a say in that. So what's the answer to that?
And I think just to kind of piggyback on that, would it be for the safety of the players, right? For the kids that are playing, right? Because the ground's so hard. It's my assumption. Okay.
The fields right now are in terrible shape.
They are.
And I want to clear, my grandson plays soccer on those very fields. And DSYSA representatives have sent me pictures of kids' shoes. Half the shoe is in the crack. Literally. I mean, they're that big.
I believe it.
But the bottom line is, do we turn off the water for the fields and say, soccer, you must go somewhere else? Or do we not have water to drink and flush commodes? And the Water Supply Corp they still are, a very serious mode. They are very close to not having enough water to serve everybody.
To serve the basic needs of residents.
Right, or the businesses, the commercial businesses. Yeah. If they have to really restrict, we're already on no watering whatsoever. And I couldn't support spending that much water at the park when the Water Supply Corp is sitting here saying, we're in stage 4. They actually went, I think, stage 5 for a short period, or the highest level they can go. So we couldn't risk it. I've worked with DSYSA. We've offered up some alternatives.
What are those?
They haven't been happy with. Well, the thing I've been advocating for 8 years, the reuse water from the wastewater plant. And it is possible, in my opinion, to have a water truck. They haul anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 gallons. Take the water truck and just blast the water over the park. You might have to make 4 trips a day or something once a week, but that was an alternative we came up with. We have also started a reuse program to where citizens will be able, October 1st, to go to the wastewater plant and get reuse water to water their yards.
A truckload of water, or put something in the back of their truck, a couple hundred gallons.
I actually, to try it out, used a 250-gallon tote that you can buy just about anywhere from all of the distilleries in different places, those big squares. And the guys would fill it up. I could take it, attach a hose to it, and just let it run slowly over the trees to try to keep trees.
Yeah.
And that's how we determined it really is feasible with what we have right now.
So what was the objection from DSYSA to not doing that?
They didn't feel like it was viable.
And viable or safe, or just viable? Like they thought it was too expensive, maybe?
I don't know their reason.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask them.
That's curious, though. I guess even a homeowner could probably do the same thing if they're worried about their yard, right? I mean,
well, I was actually thinking that when it was really bad. I was like, people were like, where are you going to get some water? And it's free. They don't charge you for the water.
We're going to start just a minimal charge to cover staff time and things like that. But it is still really bad. This rain, and that's what I'm so afraid of, is people are going to say, oh, it rained, everything must be good.
Yeah.
No, it's not yet, excuse me.
You just got to go look at Lake Travis to realize how bad it really is.
Yeah. And to tell you, we talked to the Water Supply Corp. Normally the roads that are being built, they have those water trucks that water the base. We asked the Water Supply Corp, don't allow that anymore. Force those developers to come to the wastewater plant and get the reuse water. Oh, best use in the world for that part. And where right now, we don't have a reuse program, so we really don't have any track history. Aaron reported to me last week over 400,000 gallons were reused last month. And that was all from the road work or different builders who came and got the water. And also,
that's great.
Discovery Golf Course. They had to cut way back on their water, and they're hauling water from the plant all the way out. They're working on to get that reuse line in.
That's great. Yeah, I mean that's what we want, right? We want to reuse this stuff rather than just putting it on that little 10 acres or whatever over there and keeping it all nice and green. Spread it around town. Yeah.
Do you feel like I know that everybody talks about the explosion of growth in Dripping Springs, but this summer there's a lot of people that have just recently moved here that haven't ever experienced the longevity of the over 100-degree weather, and then we talk about the water problems and the snowmageddon and the ice storm, and now we have crickets, and I'm sure drip is in Revelation somewhere. But do you feel like a little bit that the shine has worn off of drip? I mean, or do you think that growth is going to just continue to happen here?
I think growth is going to continue. The proximity to Austin, the great views that we offer, the great restaurants, all of our businesses are so welcoming. I think the growth is going to continue, and the wedding venues. I mean, and the distilleries.
Huge,
I mean, you can just count all the great things. Mm-hmm. Do I hope it's tempered and pulls back? Yes. I don't feel like this is sustainable for a city because we're always behind the eight ball. We can't get ahead. You know, it takes 4 or 5 years before you know what your taxes are going to be generated by these. So the traffic's already here, and now we're trying to build the roads. That road you mentioned that they just put up the traffic lights for on 290, eventually that road is going to connect all the way out to Ranch Road 12, about a mile past DS Elementary School.
Wow.
So that's what we've been doing to plan for it. Yes, it's late, but it takes that long to get the problem.
But that'll be going through some neighborhoods, right?
Yes. Yeah. It'll be going through the Wild Ridge neighborhood, Anarene.
Okay. But you'll have a boulevard similar to what we have.
Right. Well, it'll be very similar to what we just opened at Roger Hanks Parkway.
Right.
So that we diverted a lot of traffic that way. And those are the type things I mentioned last time I was here that we're trying to work on, is get some connector roads that will move that traffic.
It's interesting to me how often people focus on things that are not happening or things that they wish you would do, and they don't focus on the accomplishments. And so that was one of my questions. How does that make you feel as the mayor, the leader, the CEO of this city, because you guys have accomplished a lot of great things, but does it bother you when people just always seem to focus on the negative?
It does. It does. And my wife is one of those people. Why can't you do something about this traffic?
Oh, geez,
But we have done a lot, I feel like. Is it enough? No, there's a lot more to do.
So, Steve, why don't you read this one right here on the screen?
From Susan Gretzinger?
Yes.
As new developments continue to be approved, how is DRIP planning on addressing worsening traffic issues? You kind of answered that.
But I also know that you have the TxDOT. You mentioned earlier that there's very few city roads, so you're dealing with TxDOT, Hays County. Earlier in our monologue today, we mentioned the Sawyer Ranch project, which is infuriating to me because I live down that road, and it's more of a TxDOT
thing, right?
Or
Hays County. Hays County.
You know what it reminds me of? Remember when you were a kid and you'd had those Sears, those jeans that were just, you put a hole in them and your mom would put this like god awful patch. That's what Sawyer Ranch, the iron-on patch. That's what it looks like down there. So how much control do you actually have over what's going on in traffic here?
On the state highways, zero. I know.
Is it literally zero? Like, I'm sorry to cut you off in the middle of your question, but this section here from Ranch Road 12, we're right behind McDonald's. From Ranch Road 12 up to where this new light is, it's got to be one of the most dangerous sections of road on 290 anywhere. Can the city work with TxDOT to make some improvements, or is it literally like we just got to live with it because that's a TxDOT road?
We could work with them. If we had the funding capabilities to acquire the land, that would make it easier, and TxDOT may be willing, but we're pretty well landlocked. I mean, you can't widen and do anything to the Baptist church.
Yeah, that's true.
And then on the other side of the street, those properties are right there, and so we're by no means in a position.
That's always going to look like this. Like I know that from the Y, I heard from the Y all the way down to 281, TxDOT already has a plan. So is there going to be a freeway that's going over Dripping Springs, or that's not any?
They do not have drawings to show us what it will look like from about a half a mile north of here where the new traffic light is through downtown Dripping and out to the middle school.
Oh,
Sorry. Wow. They don't have the firm.
There's a big question mark on their map.
That they would like 6 lanes, I think.
Oh, wow.
But there's not enough room.
Right. We're not going to do that. Short Mama's house would get taken out. And then the Baptist
do they go
church.
Up? Yeah.
So do you elevate and go up?
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you go up and go over? You still have to have feeder roads underneath. So that's even a hard, it's a hard situation. I don't fault TxDOT. They don't have the funding to do something on this level right now in this area. There was a meeting last week with Representative Isaac and with Representative Sweener discussing traffic. And they took great notes. Hopefully we'll do something. We're going to try to go up to the next level, see if we can get something on the federal, because this is a federal highway also.
It reminds me a little bit about the 183 Burnett exchange right there, where there's like a whole like little area. The highways are up here, and then there's like this, all these businesses that are almost kind of nestled under the highway there. And I just wonder if that's what our future is.
A lot of people on Facebook are talking about roundabouts.
Oh gosh.
And the one that 150 and Rancho 12 is not in the city limits. Is that right? Or is it?
No. Okay. In front of Hays City.
No, we're talking the new one is the Darden Hill.
There's been a proposed one where 150 cuts into Rancho 12 by the cemetery.
Okay.
That's not a city road. Or is it?
No, that's a state highway.
Okay.
And the county has agreed to fund part of the road. But the roundabout is all based on TxDOT's modeling. And that roundabout, I'm not in favor of it personally, but it's on our transportation plan that there will be a connecting road.
To the west.
And
at some time in the future and across some place we don't even really know at this point.
The county has a map. They've drawn it. They've talked to some of those property owners. And at this point, it's not moving very fast at all. So I don't know if anything's going to happen there.
Yeah. So just personally, it sounds like you're opposed to the roundabout. Why are you personally opposed to that?
I don't like roundabouts.
Okay.
I've driven roundabouts in other cities, and I just don't think it's appropriate on these highways with our dark sky ordinances. Roundabouts use a lot of lights. The other issue
that's an argument I haven't thought about, though. If it's dark, Yeah,
they do. And we have a lot of infrastructure in the ground, wastewater. There's water lines all under that particular roundabout, and those have to be relocated or they're going to have to be underground under the roundabout. If you leave them there, what happens the first time you have to dig one up?
Oh, yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Oh, yeah. You're interrupting a couple of major roads.
This is going to be National Lampoon's Dripping Springs Vacation.
I know.
We're just driving around.
You just mentioned dark sky, and I noticed I was looking at some of the agendas from previous city council meetings, and you had approved some lights out migratory month for September through November and March through May.
Yep.
So tell us about that.
Birds don't migrate in their normal pattern when there's bright lights at night. They change patterns, and that changes ecosystem in many ways because those birds have gone a different direction. So it's very encouraging to get people to try to turn the lights out.
You're just talking about porch lights, lights on the garage, things like that.
And commercial businesses, they can turn their lights off. Most of the agreements we have with the new buildings, they're required to take their lights down to a certain level after they close. And that it helps immensely. Yeah. And we want to keep doing that.
That's cool. That whole dark sky thing, that was pretty controversial when you guys first started rolling that out, wasn't it? But I can go stand out in front of my house over there just south of 290, kind of by Time and Doe, and see stars in the morning. And I'm like, I don't know any other city you could stand in the middle of the city and look up and see stars.
That's because it's so dark you've hit your head and you see stars around.
That's true. That's true.
But one other thing, talking about dark skies, and this will only be a 3-minute dark sky or 4.
Yeah.
We are really promoting the 2 eclipses that are
going to
occur.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. They're anticipating, I may be wrong, but 4 times the amount of people that we normally would have in the city.
And this is like on a Monday or a Tuesday, right?
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
it something like that? It's like on a random weekday, and all these people are going to be coming here in the Drip.
They'll be here for 3 days or more.
And it's
hotels are booked.
Right. And it's like we are like the epicenter for it. Like Dripping Springs is like right in the middle of it.
We're real close. Fredericksburg is actually going to have a few minutes more darkness.
Okay.
But I think it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a pretty neat thing.
Yeah.
They started, the Eclipse group started telling us what has happened in other cities when they've had it. And things as simple as finding restroom facility, porta potties. You can't rent them. They're all rented.
Oh, geez.
Restaurants will be crowded because of people spending 2 or 3 days here.
You know how I realized about it? I have 2 short-term rentals, and they both got filled up like within a day of each other. And like the solar eclipse is in October next year, right? I think it's the lunars
No,
in
There's one this next
this
month.
October.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
There's
this
one in
October.
October.
Yeah, yeah. So this was last year.
They're both solar eclipse.
Okay, yeah, but I couldn't figure out what was going on. They both got booked like just back to back, and I was like, oh, they announced the solar eclipse. But that piggybacks onto something else. There's quite a few short-term rentals in Dripping Springs, and now that we've got the 7% hotel occupancy tax, which you guys are using to most of that to promote further tourism. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Are there any other things that are being discussed with short-term rentals at the city, or is that that's put it to bed, the hotel occupancy tax, the hot tax?
That's the main issue with it. We don't want to get into regulating what you can rent, what you can't rent on short-term rentals. That's just not a road to go down. And the legislature's made it clear that that's not something that we're allowed to do. But the tax, the hotel tax, that's a big deal. It funds a lot. Dripping Springs Ranch Park, a lot of that is eligible for it. Many people may not know we actually worked with the Visitors Bureau after Pam resigned, and we're now running the Visitors Bureau. So we're using those funds to help grow and bring more tourists into town, which is exactly what Pam was using the funds for when she ran the Visitors Bureau.
Yeah. And we have four hotels now. And so I think that in order to continue being the wedding capital of Texas and the breweries and everything else, is that we need these other sources of and places for people to stay. And, like Steve's, it's 3-bedroom, 2 baths, and you can get a lot of people in there and still have breakfast.
And the city probably has not had any complaints about short-term rentals, have you?
It's very, very rare.
Only you specifically, Steve.
I've been doing it for on one for coming up on a year, and on the other one about 9 months, and I've had one problem the entire time, and it was easily resolved just by asking them to do something different. So the people that complain, the short-term rentals are ruining the feel of Dripping Springs, I don't see that.
No, I don't see that.
They're contributing to the greatness because they're spending their money here and enjoying our town.
That's right.
And you have to look at the clientele of Dripping Springs, the value of the properties, your home, any others that you would be renting out. It's not going to be given away, so the people have to afford it to live there.
Right.
And so,
yeah.
So, to go back on the short-term rental too, just even housing affordability here in Dripping is a huge concern in Drip. And Steve and I like to joke around a lot that we're not a real estate podcast, but we talk all things.
It comes up once in a while.
Dripping Springs. But some of our most valuable employees within Dripping Springs, our city employees, most definitely our school employees, they can't even really afford to live here. So how is Dripping, or what kind of measures are being taken to kind of ensure that these people that have called Dripping Springs home for forever, is going to remain or become accessible for all income levels?
Well, if we could solve that problem,
I know.
that'd be great.
I know.
It's hard. That is where the city was struggling so much 3 or 4 years ago when we started doing a lot of these smaller lots to allow more density and hopefully bring the cost of homes down a little bit just by the square footage volume. Mm-hmm. But as you know, things just all of a sudden took off, and it hasn't done a lot for the value for teachers or first responders who can't afford to live here. And Jeffrey Twa is on council. He and I have been working and looking at ways where we may have some things to announce soon. We're working to see. Of course, we did add some apartment complexes here in the city, which is not
ideal.
Something, right. People don't love it, but it also affords an opportunity for some people to be here. And I think the Springs apartment out west of town are going to go through some big remodel and start looking
It's about
better
time.
From what I
It's about time. there was a price drop in Big Sky the beginning of the year, and it allowed my son, who's graduated from Dripping Springs almost 10 years ago, and I think he thought he was never going to be able to come back to his hometown. And it's not an ideal location for him, as far as front yard, backyard.
Great starter home,
but you know what? It's a starter home for him, and he never thought he was going to be able to afford to live here in Dripping Springs. And so that was an opportunity for him.
Yeah. I'm some more questions here, and this is from Linda Wing. It came through our website, and I think it's a common misconception. She says, because of the current insufficient wastewater treatment, could the city temporarily suspend granting wastewater permits for new development, which is actually going on now because you can't because of the lawsuit. But isn't it a common misconception that the city council can just pick and choose what kind of businesses they want here in town?
To a degree. Yeah. Through zoning, you do have control of what businesses are there. But could we stop issuing wastewater permits? Not if we've signed an agreement with that development that says we have the wastewater, and they have to also have an alternative way to dispose if for some reason their contract or development agreement allows that.
Right. So, but kind of I'll let you have the next question, Michelle, but kind of going back to, we were talking about the strip club. Only because I think most people.
Where's your mind going?
Yeah, that's true. Only because most people probably wouldn't want that. But if somebody came in and they purchased a property and they could and had the right zoning, and they could get the conditional use permit, and they met all the requirements by the city, they could open a strip club, and the city council can't say that's not the kind of business we want.
No, but the property has to be zoned commercial services, I believe is where it is.
I think that's right.
And that allows a conditional use permit. The city can agree to disagree to issue it. And because our zoning is still so old, a lot of the commercial services was areas that we really didn't know what to zone it back in the 80s and 90s. So it got that CS designation. Well, now if you came in for a conditional use permit, could be the Methodist church right next door to you. We could say, no, that's not an appropriate place, but we do have others. That's just too close proximity to kids or something like that. Yeah. So we have a little leeway with the conditional use permit.
But you're not in a position, because I think a lot of people, they say it to us, and we see it on Facebook. They want you to just pick and choose who can come and go, and the city can't do that.
No.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. So go ahead, Michelle.
That is interesting. So one of the questions I have is, besides the obvious, and we're reading questions off of the Dripping Springs neighbors page, besides the water, the traffic, again, school congestion, what do you think is a unique problem that Dripping Springs has that other towns our size aren't really facing?
The rapid growth. The only other towns are on the I-35 corridor. We don't have that major infrastructure. Not being next to the I-35 corridor makes it very difficult to have that large employer come into town because they want to be able to get in and out their employees. So that is a impediment. The other thing that I consider great, but it creates issues, is we are right in the middle of two of the most pristine creeks in the state of Texas, in my opinion, Onion Creek and Barton Creek. Yeah. So any kind of roadway infrastructure has to take those things in the mind and see how it's going to impact them. So it makes it real difficult. In my world, we're seeing it. We're going to grow almost like a strip town in some ways, because if we go to the west, we're going to be right on top of Barton Creek, and we've got to be very careful. We've got a new park coming in the next year or two. Yeah. Right there on Little Barton Creek and Barton Creek.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Yeah. It's a couple 100 acres, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's a huge park. Yeah, that's a boon for the city. I mentioned this to you before we started, but I'm the race director, one of the race directors for the Run by the Creek.
Okay, buckle up there.
Oh, no. So this is our 12th year. It's November 12th this year, and we've had it at the exact same place at Roger Hanks Parkway. And working with the city, we have to get a permit to close it from 290 down to where Creek Road runs into Roger Hanks Parkway. So it's probably a third, quarter of a mile, half a mile. And every year it's gotten more and more complicated. And this year it was by far the most complicated to meet the city requirements. And that was frustrating, as you know, it's an event that we've put on many times. You know our track record, you know how we leave it and all that. So I hear that sometimes from developers or people that are trying to do things with the city, that the city asks for more and more each year. So tell us why that is, and how people can work better with the city to make it less frustrating.
Follow a lot of the time. And I don't know your specific situation, but a lot of times many things can be done online, but there's a process. And if people don't follow the process, we're not in a position to try to run back and say, wait, you have to do this, or it just takes longer.
Right.
And we may not catch it for a week or two and then say, wait, we got to have this. You get delayed. The other issue is events have gotten so much larger. I don't know how many you've got coming to the race now compared to 5 years ago.
It's actually about the same. We get about 500, 550 people, yeah.
I knew you were around 5. Those are all type things we look at. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we never dreamed of someone driving a car through a barricade to try to hurt people.
Well, that's true.
So the safety side has to be looked at carefully. We now put up a full metal barricade that you cannot drive through on Founders Day to try to block traffic off at 12. I don't know. Many people haven't seen it. But those are all the things he's looking at with our safety, is to make sure, you know, are people going to have enough water on the race, which I know you know what you need to have, but we just have to double check it. And it's frustrating, and codes change by the state. So that changes what we're required to do. And it's hard to get a checkbox for everything we need, but
and every event's different. Well, I wasn't doing it so much to complain. I just know that, you know, people get frustrated, and it's better if you understand why it is that way. You can navigate it a little bit better.
And in your instance, you're exactly right. But when you started the race, there wasn't much traffic on Creek Road.
That's true.
There weren't bicycles like they are now.
That's
true. So those
that's
type
true.
things, it evolves, and we just have to make sure people are notified and are aware of what's going on.
That's a responsible leader answer right there.
Yes, it
Look
is.
at that.
Well done,
And
Bill.
you know, Bill, I want to ask you, I know your term ends May 2024. Are you planning on running again?
Excuse me. I really haven't decided. It's hard. And my hat's off to Todd Purcell to do this for 20 plus years. I don't know how he did it. Strong wife and good people running this business, because my business does suffer from doing this city.
Because it's an unpaid, again, to remind everybody, this is an unpaid position. And I'm going to ask this question again. Why are you not paid for your time? Why has there not been any movement to have this position or paid?
The main reason that we haven't done it is it's a sense of community. And as long as we have people who are willing to put the hours in and do the work, we're not spending tax dollars. We've got a phenomenally low sales ad valorem tax, and we just want to try to keep it that way. And all the council members feel that way. We've talked about paying council members. Mm-hmm. And at some point we may need to, because of the time that's put into it. But, you know, say it's even a $15,000 a year
stipend or something.
That extrapolate that out, then you suddenly are just putting $100,000 towards salaries for all of that.
And I was going to ask you, that's your biggest cost at the city's probably salaries now, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, by far. So I've got one last question, and it's from Jennifer Ziegler, who was a guest a couple weeks ago, and she said for us to ask you about your Austin wildlife rescue, and that you have come out to her property and released owlets, polecats, hawks. Is that right?
Yeah. all sorts of things.
So we can go to Jennifer's house now and release raccoons and stuff that are peeing on my back porch.
Armadillos.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Nice to know that.
How'd you get involved with that, Bill?
And it's not directly through Austin Wildlife Rescue. I have a very good friend who was affiliated with them. He's a rehabber, and he lives out in McDade.
Okay.
He may have 60 deer at any one time that he's rehabbing.
Wow.
And there's certain parameters to release a deer, but he'll also has another friend who does nothing but screech owls. And every year, probably for the last 10 years, last couple of years I hadn't done it, but I can get baby screech owls that have been raised and they're ready to be let go. And I'm looking for places to take them. It needs to be by water. And
I'm going to give you
things
Steve's
like
address
that.
when we're done.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, it's just a good thing. And he's had just many different animals that I'm fortunate enough to have access here in Dripping to release them.
Oh, yeah.
We released them at DSRP, Dripping Springs
cool.
Ranch Park.
You know what's
That's
funny
a
is
cool story.
it is a cool story. And I read that and I was like owlets and then polecats. And I went, what the hell is a polecat? I don't even know what a
is a
polecat
polecat?
is.
It was a ringtail. Is
A
what it was at her
ringtail.
house.
Okay,
A couple of ringtail cats.
Okay, I know what a ringtail is as well. You're a man of many talents, Bill. It's I appreciate the time that you spend with us, and you answer a lot of just roundabout questions, and we threw you a bunch of different things. And the city has done very well under your leadership, and I know you haven't made up your mind about the next term, but I hope you continue in that place. And we thank you for spending this time with us.
I certainly appreciate it, and you'll be one of the first to know if I'm going to
All right.
run.
Well,
I'll
we're
let
going to
y'all
have
know.
you back on in 2024. So even if you decide to run, not to run, and if you're just releasing screech owls in Steve's
talk
backyard,
about
we'll
polecats.
have you over. Thank you so much for joining us, Bill.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing Mercer Street in the next year or two. It sounds like a lot of stuff's going to be happening.
Oh, yeah, can't wait. So
Keep it going.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Thank y'all.
Ready to turn your land dreams into reality? Look no further than Capital Farm Credit.
Need a loan for your perfect piece of land? Capital Farm Credit is there for you.
Their dedicated team will tailor a loan to fit your unique needs because your dreams are their priority.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit capitalfarmcredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender. Elevate your living experience with M. Elliott Studio, your trusted partner in interior design, registered and licensed by the state of Texas.
You want your home to reflect your personal style and identity. Investing in a well-crafted design doesn't just beautify your home, it enriches your life.
Team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, understands the profound impact of a thoughtfully designed space. From remodeling to full design, M. Elliott Studio is the first step to unlocking your style.
Turn your aspirations into reality. Tailored to your taste and desires, M. Elliott Studio will work to create an environment that embraces your style with style.
Your space, their expertise.
melliotstudio.com 512-781-0224.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at mallettintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.